What's up, everybody? Good afternoon. Welcome to the JJSports podcast. I'm Joey,
I'm Josh.
and we're going to get right into our first topic of the day, which is basketball. So, usually I like to mix it up with basketball, but I want to make this one specifically more Knicks centered because so far nothing has hit my eye. You know, we haven't had crazy scores this while. I want to talk about the Knicks specifically because they've been winning as of late. So I want to talk about it. Now, as I share my screen, Josh, any thoughts before I share my screen about how the Knicks are going recently?
Yeah, I know I said I wasn't 100% sure about Derrick Rose the first time we talked about him because he wasn't great in his first stint with them. And then as we talked about in the last episode we did, that was relying on, or that we centered, not our baseball specific episode where we covered all four sports. I said, you know what? I think that he's going to add a good depth option, but I'm still a little iffy about it. Now I think he provides. Hey, I'm all for it. I'm so happy they brought him in. He's made such a good impact. He's been nothing shy of just overall solid in every performance. He's hit at least 14 points in every performance he's ever played with the Knicks in this specific stint and season with them. And obviously, when you're losing a couple games in a row, and in really two games they should have won, in my opinion, against the Miami Heat, where they let it slip away in the fourth. I mean, in that first game, okay, the gap was a little bit wider. Heat had a little more control in the fourth quarter. In that second game, though, the Knicks were all over. It was the Heat's bench that got them started and going in that game late. And what happened was, in the end, I mean, RJ Barrett with that last second look, he's not going to miss that very often. I can't say the Knicks exactly deserve to win that game, but I also wouldn't exactly be so fast to hit them hard about, oh, you lost that game. It was a textbook. Because it was a textbook, look, now Barrett's not going to miss that. Don't get me wrong. 9 times out of 10, he's going to make that shot. But every here and there, you're not going to win them all. And the Heat are a good team. I know their record doesn't say that. They, I believe, still over the last couple of days have been just a little bit lower than the Knicks have been in the seeds. But the Knicks are proving that they're not a joke and that they're going to fight, even if they're not a competitive team, as I've been reiterating all the time. I don't expect them to make the playoffs, but I don't expect them to be a laughing stock either anymore. And getting 2 wins, and really in dominant fashion after 2 heartbreaking losses like that is a good way to bounce back. Tonight they get the Hawks, who are, I think, just ahead of them in the standings, and they're a team that the Knicks knocked off earlier, and they've got some talent. We know Capella and Trae Young are leading the way for that team. But let's go back. I mean, Friday night against the Wizards in Washington, don't forget. And, they've got some star power there. Bradley Beal, Russell Westbrook, Denny Avdia, who has been kind of on and off as their top draft pick in the draft this past year. Who matched up against the guy who was being debated as, oh, who's going to go first? Obi Toppin for the Knicks. So they both had the same amount of points. They both had similar stats. But overall, it was Toppin who came out on the higher end with this one, as his team ended up victorious. And I got to hand to the Wizards, though. They played well without Bradley Beal. As I mentioned, he's on this team. He missed that night as a healthy scratch, and he's been the NBA's leading scorer. So I don't exactly know the Knicks have it as a walk in the park the next time they play. Davis Bertans wasn't great as he normally would have been shooting the ball. We know that he's a very effective 3-point shooter, but only 9 points to show for it in this one. And Russell Westbrook finished a rebound shy of a triple-double. I mean, there's no shock about that. They call him triple-double man for a reason. Garrison Matthews, 14 points. Troy Brown, 10 points. It really looked like it was kind of spread around. Even though there was no one who really took control beside for Westbrook here. And like I said, didn't help to have Bradley Beal out of the lineup. As for the Knicks, another great night from Julius Randle. I mean, what's new? He finished with 18 rebounds. That's a season high. It might even be a career high if I have that correct. 24 points, another outstanding night for him. Reggie Bullock wasn't great offensively, but we know that he's always great defensively. Mitchell Robinson was having a monstrous first half until, unfortunately, I don't know if we were going to talk about it, etc., but unfortunately, the fractured right hand now, they've recommended surgery, so they're going to be without him for very possibly the remainder of the season and even playoffs if it comes to that. I don't think it will, but if somehow, some way that happens. And Barrett was really ineffective for them offensively as well on Friday night. So, I don't really know. I don't really know that. It kind of seemed like they played much better in one half than they did the other. As for the Rockets game, Joe, you get into it. Why don't you break down what you thought of this one?
So I don't know if you remember last year, but the Rockets, very different team. They had Harden, Westbrook. They were probably one of the best teams in the league. And it was one of the craziest games we ever had. I don't know if you remember. It was like a big Shaq in a full moment. PJ Tucker wouldn't touch the ball on the inbound. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you recall?
I don't remember what you're talking about. I
Whatever. It
didn't
was like
watch.
basically they inbound the ball to PJ Tucker, but he wouldn't pick it up. He was afraid to touch it. Like they were up by one. And he wouldn't touch it. So the guy picked it up on the Knicks and they just scored and they won the game. And like everyone was like, what the heck's going on? And that was like a
Was
big
this
shock.
like with coronavirus around?
No, this was last year. And like so that was a big deal because that was
I'm
like
saying, well, like, was it towards the end when like coronavirus?
oh, are you
started?
asking why he didn't touch the ball?
Yeah.
No, that would make sense. I don't know
Yeah.
why he didn't touch the ball. I guess he thought it would have been like out of bounds or something. I don't know what he was thinking. Look that up
Okay,
after.
fine.
But it was weird. It was really weird. I don't know. It was kind of like when you do an onside kick and you can't touch it before
Yeah.
point.
You have to wait.
That's what he
He.
looked like he was doing. He looked like he was waiting for it to reach somewhere. But yeah, it was really weird. Look it up after. It's crazy.
All right.
Anyway, the point was when I watched that game, I was very shocked because the Rockets were a good team. That being said, the Rockets are not the same team as last year. Although I gotta admit, they're not terrible. I mean, if you look at the standings, they're not as low as you think they should be. I mean, yeah, they're 13th seed, but like it's not that crazy when you lose Harden, you lose Westbrook. I thought like you think this should be the worst team in the league, but like it's not because they still have people producing greatly like John Wall, PJ Tucker, even DeMarcus Cousins a little bit. So they're not the best team, but they're not like the basement. They're not a basement dweller.
Right.
I know the standings say that, but like I don't think they're baseball. I think they're very mediocre if I'm going to do it. But the point I'm trying to make is this is not a team that you could just like shy away from because even though they're not great, they still got a ton of shooters. The one thing the Knicks have lacked for a long time is 3-point shooters. And we finally got our guy back in Alec Burks. And while he didn't produce on this night, it's good to have a guy like that on the floor usually because he usually helps. But if he can't bring the spark on our bench, two people who can, and that's Derrick Rose, new addition, and Emmanuel Quickley. And I got to say, ever since Derrick Rose has come back, I've been so much happier about this team because this guy knows how to play in a Tom Thibodeau system better than anybody, except maybe Taj Gibson. But this guy knows this system, and he doesn't have to worry about hurting himself because he only plays like 20 minutes a game. So you don't have to worry about him like that. And he can still produce a lot of points in such little minutes. So I just want to say I'm impressive with that. Also, you talked about the RJ missed layup. Let's be honest, that's a 1 out of 10 type of miss right there.
Yeah.
Most times he's going to make that. And granted, that would have been for a tie, not a win. But, who knows what could have happened.
Gives him a fighting chance. You got to be in it to win.
Yeah, it was this close. Like, we didn't get blown out. They're one of the best teams. They were the runner-up in the NBA Finals last year. You can't count them out. But it was a very impressive game, even though we still lost. Washington, not really surprised. They are basement dwellers. So that's the case. With the Rockets, I got nothing to say, but props to Julius Randle for having an amazing seasons to this point. Looking pretty good. I don't think there's anything else to say. I mean, also, Mitch is out, so we have to rely on Nerlens Noel now. So he's doing his best, 10 points, 6 rebounds, So we'll have to.
I was going to point out I thought he was excellent in this at least first half of the game. Second half, the Knicks were a little shaky because in the third quarter, the Rockets really put the Knicks out of their misery. But in the fourth quarter, you saw the bench both times was the side of the Knicks that ignited their deep runs when you had Quickley and Rose, who have built some pretty good chemistry over just the first 3 or 4 games. Rose has been back here with the Knicks in this second stint. And Quickley, being a rookie, can learn from a guy who's the youngest player ever in NBA history to win MVP in Derrick Rose, who's not only in his second stint with the Knicks, but in his third stint, unless I have that wrong, and he's done more with Tom Thibodeau, a coach he thrives under. So it's good to see
exactly.
that. It's also nice to see that, as we mentioned, though, the starting topic of the second part of this Knicks segment with Mitchell Robinson being out, that Nerlens Noel obviously not good enough to be the starter when Robinson's there, because Robinson's been having an excellent year. It's the best of his career so far. But Nerlens Noel has done pretty well off the bench. We talked about in one of our earlier podcasts, that's why they went and got him. They wanted some more center depth in Noel. He's obviously not a big name center, but he's going to play. If Robinson gets into foul trouble, they've got a guy who can back him up, who's got a lot of the same physical traits as he is. He's a big man. He's a good blocker. He protects the rim.
He's a
He's
great
not a
rim
great
protector.
center.
Yeah.
He's a
Yeah,
good
great rim
rebounder like Robinson. He's not a plus offensive centerman. I think Robinson might be a little more in terms of the offense. But Noel, I mean, 10 points, and it wasn't like it was all around, in the same time of the game. It was really spread out. So it's nice to see that they're not overworking him throughout the game. And he played solid defense all throughout, even if the stats don't show steals and blocks. He had a couple nice blocks against the Rockets. He had a couple nice plays, just overall limiting offensive looks for the Rockets and not allowing them opportunities to get a shot off or make a pass or thread the needle in any way. He does a great job. I think he did a great job, and I think that we'll see it going forward from him as well. And I think that stepping up, he wants to earn that respect he once had back when he was a starter. So now that he's got that opportunity, and this Knicks team, as we mentioned, is fighting hard, I don't expect him to play to put any less effort in than the other guys on his team do.
I mean, yeah, the great thing about Nerlens Noel is that he plays a lot of games. The last 3 seasons he's played at least like 60 games. So he's a very durable guy. So if Mitch is out for a while, I know I can rely on Noel at least on the defensive side of the ball. Hopefully Mitch will come back.
Now it looks like Gibson's move is better than ever also.
Yeah, that's true. And you said you don't know about the playoffs, Josh. All I gotta say is we're not even in an 8 seed territory anymore, baby. I don't know if you noticed. I was pulling this up. 7 seed, baby. We're hovering on the 7 seed, and it's looking.
And they've got an opportunity to climb that ladder tonight. I know. I thought the Hawks were ahead of them, but they're not right now. And I don't know what the Hornets. I think the Hornets are playing tonight, if I have that, or they're not. I don't know. They either played yesterday or they're playing tonight. I'm not sure.
Yesterday.
They played yesterday. Okay, so.
Yeah, and
if they win, then they'll be ahead. It's not going to be because the Hornets really played any worse. It's just because they'll be a game ahead of them in terms of games played.
I don't know why they're. It's the same record. I don't know why they pick one over the other.
I think it goes alphabetical order after that. It's either that or it goes by other percentages that are like secondary to the wins. Like for example, in the NHL you go by points, but there's no such thing as like points in the standings as in the NBA as there are. Right. So maybe it goes by like in division record or head to head record or something. In that case, the Hornets would be ahead of the Knicks because they're 1-0 against the Knicks this year.
But you notice that the Heat are not even on the 8th seed. They're technically not even in contention automatically. They'd have to fight.
They're on the outside looking in, but they're starting to put it together. Don't forget, they won 4 straight, including 2 over the Knicks. And there's still more to come. Obviously, before that,
close games, but yes,
before that, Jazz lost. And the Jazz right now have the best record in the NBA. The Lakers were right behind them. The Lakers lost last night, so.
Are you surprised by that? By the way, that the Jazz are ahead of the Lakers?
In terms of the Jazz, no, I'm not. The Jazz, very solid, very well-rounded team. Obviously, you've got guys like Derek Favors, Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, Jordan Clarkson,
Mike Conley,
another big shooter that I'm completely missing.
Mike Conley,
that team. Mike Conley, and Bogdanovich also, who can be part of the outside shooting. Don't forget. So, there's a lot to like about this team. I don't think they'll hold on to the top seed in the entire NBA, but I definitely think they will be a top team in the NBA. And the Lakers, I mean. The Denver Nuggets are only 15-11. Boy, oh boy, they're starting to put it together. They are really starting to put it together. In their last 10, I know they're 6-4, but those wins are starting to pile up more. I don't know if they're on a streak right now. They've won 3 in a row. Nuggets have won 3 in a row.
What do you think
And
of
the last game,
what do you think of these streaks? What do you think of this? Trailblazers 4 in a row, Suns 6 in a row, and now the
that
Jazz
also
7 in a row. That's crazy.
the Suns and Blazers are starting to put it together. The Blazers fought the Dallas Mavericks very hard yesterday. I was really confident that the Mavericks were going to win that game. I don't know if you watched it, but in the last few seconds, Luka Doncic got a wide open look from the left wing for three, and it hit the back rim, bounced up, hit the other side of the rim, and then bounced out. And then they called it off of Dallas, but it wasn't close. It was clearly off of
Portland.
off Burton. Yeah. So they ended up reviewing it, and they gave it back to Portland. That was the end. Damian Lillard hit a clutch three as well. I mean, as long as you have Damian Lillard on that team, and even though they're missing Yusuf Nurkic and CJ McCollum, and McCollum was having a really, really strong season for them. So was Yusuf Nurkic. They're proving that the guys who they have, who weren't exactly starters before, like Carmelo Anthony before, Harry Giles coming off the bench every year and there, helping out with Yusuf Nurkic, and Gary Trent Jr. stepped up. Robert Covington has stepped up. Derek Jones, who was the one who was shocked they called the ball off of him initially, and then it got reviewed and it came back over. Enes Kanter as well. They're having a lot of guys really step up. Damian Lillard, of course, leading the way again. Like, that's not a surprise. We know he's a superstar. He's arguably the best point guard in the game right now.
Arguably, but he's definitely one of the best. Definitely one of the best. So
yeah, like there is a clear. But with that being said, you can't count him out. As long as you've got him, you cannot count the Portland Trailblazers out. You just can't.
Yeah. Well, you brought up something I like.
He was the difference maker. His 3-point shot was the difference in this game.
Yeah, you brought up something I'm going to bring up probably every week. Mavericks, baby, 10th seed in the West. That's pretty good for lottery chances, baby.
They're climbing the ladder.
Or actually,
I know, but look, they're climbing the ladder. Remember when they were 9-14, the last time we were, we did this. We said, it was the same thing with the Heat. They managed to win 4 of their last 5 games. So they're also starting to put it together a little bit.
I guess we'll wait and see. But yeah, the point is, Knicks are coming for you. We're climbing up the ladder. We've beaten all these teams except for the Sixers and the Nets. And I have a big feeling we're going to beat both of them at least once. I really do. So let's go. We'll have to wait and see for the rest of the season. Yeah, that's it. I think that's all I can say on basketball. You agree?
That's all there really is to say. Root them on, and if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be.
It's not meant
on
to
paper,
be.
they're not a contender.
And that's okay because it's the first year of a new head coach. So this is already above my expectations. So yeah, can't be worse. Let's get into baseball. I got a lot of news, baby. Stove is hot. I'm not sure exactly where to start. So I guess I'm going to start with these 2 pieces of information. Josh? Oh, no. Where do you go? Josh? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, I apologize for that, Joey. I think that the Wi-Fi cut out real quick.
Yeah, that's fine. So we're going to get into baseball, and I'm going to start with 2 minor league deals because I usually hate doing those, but I think the players are significant. You know both these players, so let's bring it up. The first one is D. Gordon signing a minor league deal with the Cincinnati Reds. Is this shocking to you? They signed a minor league deal. Someone like D. Gordon.
It is a little shocking. I know that he's been a bit of a head case recently, but I don't necessarily know if it's worthy of only being signed to a minor league deal. I don't think he should necessarily be the top guy ranked. He's not going to be a guy who's getting paid like he wanted to get paid before, back when he was an all-star way earlier in the 2010 decade, in the earlier years, 2012, 13, and 14. But he's definitely serviceable still, and it's not just like barely serviceable. He's still serviceable to a very strong extent at this point. And I think that he still has a somewhat plus bat. He puts the ball in play. He's still pretty fast. Obviously it's not good to see that his career OPS is a 679.
Yeah, it's
And
not great.
it was
Pretty low.
482. It was 482. Like that's just not great. But look, I mean, the Reds are kind of going through a rebuild. We thought that last year they were going to make a push, and they were a playoff team, but that was with a shortened pandemic season. That was with them playing only teams within their division or the Central Division from the American League as well, which was not a very strong division either. They're in the weakest division. The Padres were great in the West. The Dodgers won it all. The Diamondbacks, Giants, and Rockies, don't get me wrong, they're not great teams, but they fight. They don't make it easy. So that was that. In the NL East, don't even get me started. The Braves are a powerhouse. The Marlins were still they were a very, very gritty team this year. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense. There's not really much grit in baseball, but they didn't go down. They
Fought hard,
till the end.
is what you mean.
They fought till the end. We know the Mets are a good team on paper, but struggling to put it together. They're not a joke, but they're just not. They weren't a contender. The Phillies aren't a joke, but they're not a contender either. And the Nationals aren't a joke. They're just not a contender either. Really, like, it was hard to predict that NL East, really, beside the Braves, who was going to take it the rest of the way, in my opinion, at least. But, just to show that the Central Division is by far the weakest division in baseball, because you're looking at the Pirates, you're looking at the Brewers, who are just not a good team. They made the playoffs because there was expanded playoffs. I know the Reds did too, but I think the Reds might have had a better record than the Brewers, because they got to play a weaker team in the Braves than the Dodgers. Brewers had to play the Dodgers. And as for the Cardinals, they're always good. They're well managed. They're well coached. They've got good players, and they just added Arenado still, but that wasn't this past season. So anyway, the Central Division, though, not great. And the Cubs, I mean, like, let's be realistic. That franchise is on a downfall, and they're falling fast. And they're going to be shipping off players. We know that they already don't have Lester anymore because he's a Washington National. We know
They
that
don't have
they
Almora.
have
They're
Kyle
trying to
Schwarber,
ship Chris Bryant.
trying to ship Chris Bryant. I think that Javier Baez may even be out the door soon. I don't think that they're gonna. I think the only player on that team that's likely to stay really is just Anthony Rizzo.
Rizzo, yeah.
That's really all I think. They don't have Darvish anymore. I know they brought back Jake Arrieta, but he's not the same pitcher he once
I was going to
was.
bring that up. What do you
Brought
think
in
about
Zach
that?
Davies, but he's still not exactly a solidified pitcher who should be, in the top end of your rotation. So anyway, this is all just to say that the Reds are not exactly in the strongest division, and I don't think that it'll necessarily hurt their chances now that they signed D. Gordon. But keep in mind, some pieces are gone. You don't have Trevor Bauer anymore. He signed with the Los Angeles Dodgers. There's a strong chance that they might end up, I don't want to say strong actually, but there's a chance they're looking to trade with the Mets. There are talks about them sending off their third baseman, Eugenio Suarez, and one of their pitchers in Sonny Gray. Not as much to be Luis Castillo. I don't think that's going to happen. And both those guys still have 3 years left on their contract, including this year. So they're looking, they're kind of looking to rebuild through this rebuild. That's what they're looking for. I think D. Gordon is not going to hurt him in any way, but it's not going to change this team that much as to where they are, even on the major league roster, not even just in the minor league roster doesn't mean anything for them at this point. It's kind of like just putting him, a solidified player, in almost like your prospect pool kind of thing. That's kind of like what this is. For those who don't understand what it means when you sign a major league player to a minor league contract, that's kind of like what it is.
Yeah. Wow. You had a lot to say about D. Gordon.
Yeah. I mean, he was a Met killer at one point. It also turned out that, there were other things going on at that time when he was with the Marlins, but
some interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, maybe. So we'll have to see if he gets a shot at the majors again. And the other one, which I know you know this player very well, is the Yankees signing to a minor league deal, Jay Bruce.
Of course.
So what do you think? Because you know a ton about Jay Bruce, I imagine.
Do you know Jay Bruce, former New York Met, thought that he had the weirdest career as a Met as far as I can remember. They brought him and expected him to be there a while. He played more of the second half for them. Trade deadline, obviously, is when he was acquired back in 2016. And they made a push for the playoffs. They made it, lost in the wild card. 2017, he started with them, started hot, shipped him off. And then he came back again later, after he went to the Indians. He came back to the Mets again, and then he was part of that famous not for a good reason for the Mets trade, in which they shipped him off to the Seattle Mariners along with other players for Robinson Cano and Edwin Diaz and a name that I'm not going to mention, but he just happens to be a top 3 prospect in all of baseball right now. His initials are JK, and I have nothing more to say about that. We don't talk about it. We don't talk about the man who shipped him off either. I'll say his name for those who don't know. Brody Van Wagenen. What a clown that guy was. Never should have made him the general manager. But either way, all that aside, we're not here to talk about Bruce and what his stint was like with the Mets or the Mariners or even the Phillies most recently. We're here to talk about the fact that he's been signed to a minor league deal for the Yankees, and similar to the other moves the Yankees have made this offseason, it's another low risk, high reward type of acquisition for me. As I mentioned, Corey Kluber, obviously the pitching staff is already not super, super talented. Obviously you have Garrett Cole and Severino should be coming back, but other than that, it's really not that strong, at least from the starting pitching standpoint, not the bullpen. That bullpen is still very, very dangerous and good, as we know. But if Kluber stays healthy, we know what his best can be like. He's a 2-time Cy Young winner, and he's pitched in some of the highest levels of the game. He's been to the World Series. He's been a consistent postseason pitcher back when he was with the Indians. Obviously, being on the Rangers didn't help his case, but he didn't pitch much as a Ranger because he was injured a lot there. Then you bring him into the Yankees, who are a very dangerous team, and I think that he's going to add a lot of depth, a little bit of veteran leadership to that team, and especially around the younger guys still, like Garrett Cole and Luis Severino, who are 2 guys. And Cole's already getting a lot of money a year. He set the record before Trevor Bauer did this offseason. But Severino is a guy who I mentioned when we talked about it with Tyler Ward back in that episode, that the Yankees are going to have a lot of guys who are going to be entering their first free agency in their career, and they're all going to be wanting a lot of money. As I mentioned, names like Gleyber Torres and Aaron Judge and Luis Severino is one of those. And Severino is a bright pitcher. We know what he could do, but injuries have also set him back. Anyway, so bottom line being, though, low risk, high reward. I like it. If they bring him up and he mashes, great. He's a lefty. He's going to hit a lot of balls to right field. He's a power hitter, and we know that the lefty power bats have taken advantage of that in Yankee Stadium before, and I don't think it would really be – I wouldn't expect anything other than that from Jay Bruce. He's a pull hitter. He's a power hitter, similar to what the predictions were had they brought in Kyle Schwarber. That they were saying that's why they should bring Schwarber in when they were looking for an outfielder at first. But, Schwarber is younger than Jay Bruce. He's a lot more serviceable than Jay Bruce. He's better than Jay Bruce, even defensively. And even though they talk about him mostly as a DH, that's why he was going to go to the American League. He didn't. And – like Jay Bruce is a guy you could afford to put in your minor league at this point because he's nowhere near the player he once was. But that he's still serviceable, as he's shown the last few years. I like it for the Yankees. I don't think it's similar to the D. Gordon deal going to mean as much, but I think it's a stronger acquisition for a minor league deal than D. Gordon is.
Okay. Now, I never like to talk about the Orioles because, 1, I don't really care about the Orioles, and 2, they never really do anything noteworthy for me to service. And while I don't think these are great deals, I feel like I got to mention this. What do you think of them trying to look for the fountain of youth and bringing Felix Hernandez, King Felix, and your boy, the Dark Knight, Matt Harvey, also a minor league contract, to their team, to the O's?
See, Matt Harvey, I don't know what to make of, because after the Mets, we know that he was absolutely atrocious from 2016 and on. So really, whatever he's done, I haven't followed much of that. So obviously, you're bringing in a guy who just has experience pretty much. And yeah, he was a good pitcher, in the Mets playoff run in 2015, but that really was all. Aside from also a pretty strong rookie year, but there's really not much more beside that. Felix Hernandez is one of the more accomplished pitchers that baseball has ever seen. He's one of the very few pitchers in an MLB career to throw a perfect game. Obviously, we know that, he's an accomplished pitcher, and that the Orioles are not a very accomplished team right now and haven't been for a while. They've been in the basement really for the last 2, 3, 4 years. And they've shipped off their guys who were really helped carrying that team, like Jonathan Scope and Adam Jones, and Chris Davis is completely just I can't even get behind the fact that they're still paying him after signing that huge contract way back in the beginning of the 2010s decade. And more than that, doesn't hurt him. You know, I even though Felix Hernandez would seem like the guy to not be as serviceable, I think that he has more value in this minor league deal. But I mean, whatever. It's not like you're getting the Felix Hernandez back from 2013-14, and you're not getting the Matt Harvey from 2015. Excuse me. So yeah, that's really all there is. I don't have much to say. I mean, Hernandez also signed a minor league deal with the Braves a while ago. So it's not like this will be as new to him as it is Matt Harvey, if that means anything. But I don't really think it does. It's just knowing that this guy has a lot of experience, and yeah, it's a minor league deal. It's nothing different than the other two we've already talked about.
I just thought to mention it because of, the whole, like, how big these guys were, like, years ago. Like, is it worth it to, like, bring these old souls back? That kind of thing. But, yeah, there's not much you could say. So let's just go to the next piece of news. Let me pull it up for you. So you remember how the Cardinals traded for Arenado. And yes, they got cash with Arenado, but that means you have to let somebody go, right? Because they can't afford everybody. So who's the odd man out? Dexter Fowler. Dexter Fowler last week was traded to the Angels. What do you think about this move, Josh?
I think that the Angels could use it. Their outfield depth is not great beyond Mike Trout. Joe Adell has not proven himself just yet. They don't have Cole Calhoun anymore. They didn't have him last year. He's kind of going to be the replacement for that guy. He's not as good as Cole Calhoun, but he still has a decent glove and some decent speed. He's not great at the plate. He's been way more of a defensive outfielder his entire career. But look, 15 RBIs in 23 games, 4 homers, 233 average. Yeah, it all says it's not there for offense. And if he happens to produce, then great. He's a good base runner. He's always been a smart base runner. He's always had some good speed to his game. Obviously, aging, he's not anymore. But he's also a switch hitter, which kind of, I guess that it adds something as to if he was only a right-handed batter or a left-handed batter. He built most of his career with Colorado. He was on some good Cardinals teams, but obviously Colorado, a lot of people would say the Coors effect, where he was a much better hitter than he was a Cardinal. So anyway, but look, it doesn't hurt the Angels in any way. You've got a guy, as I mentioned, who's not as fast or not as much range as he used to have, but can definitely help Mike Trout out there. He's definitely not going to be a DH if I had to picture. Trout is going to cover a lot of ground in center. Fowler in either right or left is going to cover a lot of ground as well. He could play both. He could even play center, but no one's moving Mike Trout, obviously. And, it kind of opens up a little bit, because now you don't have to have Justin Upton playing the field, even though he was more of a DH. He was almost always the DH as an outfielder still. It kind of moves that around for him to only be the DH, and you can have guys like Fletcher, who's versatile out there. And I like the move. I just it's not vintage Dexter Fowler anymore. That's all.
Yep, that's true. Okay, next. So speaking of reunions, this one's a little interesting, and it kind of makes one of the worst trades ever even worse. Chris Archer just re-signed with the Tampa Bay Rays. What do you think?
Yep. I think that you're either going to really like this or really hate this, but I think that this was an excellent move by the Rays. I'll tell you, I know excellent might be a little far-fetched, but just hear me out. We know he thrived with Tampa, and they shipped him off. He wasn't a bad pitcher with the Tampa Bay Rays. He wasn't really even that bad a pitcher with the Pittsburgh Pirates, but it was a lot more noticeable as to how much he struggled in Pittsburgh compared to Tampa. Another thing, though, the Rays, we know, are built on pitching. We know guys are going to put it together, and it's not like it was back when he was a pitcher on that team. The management has changed. The coaching staff has changed a little bit. He doesn't have Joe Madden as his manager anymore. He's got another great manager in Kevin Cash, who's not going to push him beyond his limits, obviously. We know how much more controlled the Tampa Bay Rays are when it comes to managing their team right now. You saw it in the postseason. You saw it during the regular season. You saw it during the postseason. I think we're going to see it again, even without the names that they no longer have, like Charlie Morton and Blake Snell. But you still got Glasnow, who's great, and he's young, and he was part of that Chris Archer trade when they shipped him off to Pittsburgh, and Glasnow became a Tampa Bay Ray. Now they're pitching together. I think that Glasnow, despite pitching less in his career than Archer has, can still help Chris Archer out and readapt to a new system that Tampa Bay has changed to ever since Archer's been there last. And also, I mean, as I mentioned, he's still a good pitcher. He's still serviceable. He's still young. We know what he can do when he's on his game at his best, when he's working hard. It doesn't make the Rays, obviously, World Series contenders again, but it's definitely going to help stop the bleeding from the wound that was opened up by losing both Blake Snell and Charlie Morton, who were probably their two best pitchers.
Yeah, well said. I mean, like, you're not replacing Snell or Morton. They're much better than you. But what was I saying?
Look, if Archer has an excellent year, then
yeah, he just needs stability. That's all they need technically right now. They're not the same team, so
yeah,
you gotta do. That's all I can say.
Yep.
So a few more signings to talk about. First of all, you talked about the Marlins.
Assuming you don't go over, I have some extra news in baseball. If
you want to say
when
it?
You're done with yours,
I got a lot. So you might as well.
No, I don't want to break up. Let's go to the Marlins. Let's go while we're in the NL East. We'll talk about it.
So we got the Marlins. I got Marlins news and Braves news. So
all right, I've got something after that.
So Marlins, you talked about how while they were not what's it called? They were not the best team. They fought hard. Now they got a very interesting player. We all know him from a few years ago. Let's see what he can do. What do you think of them signing Adam Duvall?
I like it. I think that this team is young. They're up and coming. As I mentioned, they weren't talented, but they fought hard. They were gritty. They got it done. They made the playoffs. I know that was with an expanded postseason, but you know what? It's not like they were just wiped out in the qualifying round, in the wild card round, as we'll call it. They made it to the divisional round. They lost to the Braves. Sure, Braves are a powerhouse. The Marlins didn't really have a chance. The Braves were used to playing them. They knew kind of what they were dealing with already in the Marlins as being division rivals. But I will say the Marlins are getting better. I think they should be proud of the team they have. And they did it, I don't want to say with a bare bones operation, but with basically a bare bones operation. Bare bones operation, not in the sense that they had absolutely nothing, because they still had something there, but bare bones operation in the sense that's why it's not. It is because all their starters were out almost the entire year, minus the pitching side, but all their fielders. I mean, where the heck did this come from? Eddie Diaz and Brian Anderson took a massive step forward, along with who was the first bit? Oh my gosh. I'm blanking on names of Martin. Jonathan VR was great for them for the time he spent in Miami that year. Obviously, he wasn't a Marlin before. He was in Baltimore Oriole before. So with completely new guys they had never really dealt with. The only piece that was really there that was part of the starting core consistently throughout the year that never really saw any time off was Brian Anderson. We mentioned what a great year he had. Other than that, though, you also had Corey Dickerson, who was brought in from the Philadelphia Phillies prior. He ended up being a pretty good piece for them. There were pieces for the Marlins, and Don Mattingly is a great manager. We know what he's done. It's not even just with the Marlins, because back when he was managing the Dodgers before Dave Roberts took over, he was a great manager. He was the one who brought them those first 5 or 6 NL West champions titles. They won the division repeatedly with him as the manager. He's a good manager, and even without all the talent in the world, he still gets it done. He proved, he's one of the top 3 managers in the game, in my opinion. We're not going to get into that. We're not going to get into that debate. I'm saying he makes it work with whatever he has. He's like Kevin Cash manager of the NL. That's how it is. He's a great manager. He's a great player also, but that's beside the point.
He
The
wasn't.
Marlins could definitely use this help. Adam Duvall's a power hitter. He's not atrocious in the outfield, but his upside is definitely more in his offense. And another thing I see though in this, and this is the final thing I'll end with on this, is that it's not only a plus for the Marlins, but it's also a subtraction for the Braves because he was a big part of that Braves offense, as we know. They brought him in from the Reds, and he didn't stop hitting. That's what he's known for. He's a guy in a full season, not an injury prone, who's going to hit you 30-plus bombs a year. He's going to bring in a decent amount of RBIs. He's not a great average hitter, but he produces. And sometimes that's what you need, and the Marlins, I think, could use that. I think he fits in well with them.
Yeah, I mean, you've said it perfectly. Which brings you to my next point. He was on the Braves. Very important player for the Braves. They just lost him. They have to fill his role. They did fill his role. Who do they fill his role with? Well, they filled it with a friendly face known as Marcell Ozuna. He's back, baby. Reactions. Thoughts, Josh? Any thoughts, Josh?
No, not really.
What?
I mean, look, we know what it is. We know what it
Okay.
is.
Okay.
He was debatably an MVP player last year.
Great.
There's nothing more to say. This team is going to be great with Marcell Ozuna. Obviously, his glove is not what it once was. But that bat was deadly last season, and I expect him to. I don't know if he could put up exactly the same numbers. It almost felt like 2020 was almost went too well for him. But it was only 60 games.
Yep, that's true.
I think that look, I'm expecting big things from him offensively. Defensively, though, I think is where they're going to be short. They were short with Duvall, and Ozuna is not even as good defensively as Adam Duvall was. Duvall's not, as I mentioned before, Duvall's not a terrible fielder. He's just way more valued for his bat. Same with Marcell Ozuna, but the defense is even worse than Duvall. So I don't like it defensively, but if they need to fill a position and that bat is going to produce the same way seasons prior, he's always been a good hitter. Over the years, he's lacked a little bit of consistency, but it wasn't exactly in the worst way possible, if that makes sense. For example, in 2019, I think he hit 30-plus home runs, and say 2020, he had that season, obviously in only 60 games. So fine, maybe 2019 wasn't the best year. Say in 2018, if he hit like 35 home runs, and then 2019 he only hits like 25, his batting average a little bit less, right? That's not terrible. To drop 10 home runs, 35 home runs is outstanding. 25 is still pretty good,
Yeah. Yep.
3 straight offensive seasons that have definitely been on the upside, on the plus side of the league, and I expect another strong offensive season from him. I don't know what they're going to do in terms of defense there. Maybe they'll have a guy move over like Austin Riley, who could also play the outfield. But yeah, look, because you're going to be looking at guys like obviously Acuna and Ender and Ciarte, who are going to be platooning between right and center, or maybe even left, because that's Ozuna's position. And who knows, maybe, I don't know if Nick Markakis is still with the team or if he's a free agent, but if not, he could play both corner outfielders if they decide to bring him back. So we'll see. Definitely helps the Braves offensively. Defensively, I think they need a little bit of work, though.
Okay. A few more moves, and then we will conclude. Let's see. Okay. What do you think about the Mariners reuniting with their boy, James Paxton? I don't know. Can you see it?
Yeah. Good for him. Good for him. He's obviously not the pitcher he once was back 3 or 4 years ago. He threw that no-hitter for the Mariners a couple of years ago, and he wasn't a bad pitcher with the Yankees, but they were expecting a lot more from him, I think, and he didn't bring it. And he's going back to the Mariners. They might be the worst franchise right now out of them all, next to the Pirates at least.
Yeah.
They might be, and it's a shame because they have they do have some pretty interesting names on that team, or they had at least coming into this year. And we've already spoken about a few, such as D. Gordon and Jay Bruce and Malik Smith, who's a Met, by the way. I know that we never really touched on that a while ago, but that too, he was one of their huge base stealing threats. But on the bright side, other than this, Paxton's definitely not going to hurt this team in any way. We know their prospect pool is pretty strong. I mean, I know I said I wasn't going to talk about it before for where he left from, but Jared Kelenic, oh my gosh, the dude is going to be a stud. He is tearing it up. He's been tearing it up. He's a top 3 prospect. I would even put him as the second best, obviously behind the Rays.
Under Franco.
I mean, like, he's just, like, there's not even a question about that. I would debate he's a top 2 prospect. They also have another pitcher I think he's also a top 5 prospect. I forget what his name is. But anyway, they're looking to have a somewhat bright future in terms of players to come up. And it's not even like these are guys who are going to be waiting another 2 or 3 years. Like, we could see them as early as this coming season, maybe not on opening day, but definitely sometime throughout this season. And if not, then next season, but it's not going to be any longer than that for both of those guys. And who knows? I mean, I don't know how long Paxton plans on being here. I know it's only a 1-year deal, but who knows? Maybe he wants to stay after. But I guess they'll cross that bridge when they come to it. And $8.5 million is not terrible for the seasons he's had before. I might argue it might even be a bit of a steal, because even though I said he wasn't the same pitcher with the Yankees as he was in his first stint with the Mariners, he was definitely still a solid pitcher who could be in the 3 spot, the 4 spot, maybe even in some rotations. I like it for the Mariners. I don't really like to see this. Like, the Mariners have been one of my more favorite teams to watch, with guys like King Felix and Sashi Wakuma, Ichiro, those guys all playing throughout the organization. And now I have to see them struggle. And I like seeing them struggle because I've liked a lot of their players over time. But, it is what it is. And Paxton coming back should help him.
Okay. So, I think that's all you could say. We'll have to see.
Yeah, that's all there really is to it.
Okay, what do you think about the Brewers signing Colton Wong?
So I think this actually happened a while ago, did it not? Or at least I'd heard about there were talks.
It was like rumors and stuff, but like.
Oh, fine. I like it. I don't know what
confirmed till last week, but yeah.
I don't know what they're going to do with Keston Hiura. He's a second baseman. Hiura's a second baseman. There are talks that they can move Keston Hiura to first base, but even if they can't, it's not terrible. They'll find a way to get both of them. Wong plays elite defense. Hiura's got a very, very strong bat. And Wong is a clutch bat. I know that we talk about him. He's not such an offensive threat. But if you look at his timing, he's been deep into the postseason. He's been, with multiple franchises. Sorry, not multiple franchises. Against multiple franchises. It's not like they've had the same run every time he's been there. He's seen different teams. He's seen the Dodgers. He's seen the Giants. He's seen the Brewers. He has seen the Nationals. He's seen the Braves. He's seen a lot of teams. He's got a lot of experience. He plays Gold Glove defense. And as I mentioned, not a very, very consistent, threatening bat. He's an experienced bat. He's going to come through in situations. He comes through a lot in situations when it's clutch time. So I like the move by the Brewers after a down season compared to their previous 2 in 2018, where they were the top seed in the NL, in 2019 when they were a wild card team. But the wild card race was still pretty close with the other first place teams. Really, just the only team that kind of had full control over everyone that year was the Dodgers, because they were over 100 wins. But every other team didn't have more than like 97 wins. The Braves were at 97. I think the Cardinals were at 96. The Nationals were at like 95. And the Brewers really were like the only team out of it. But they were, the Cardinals didn't really pull away until like the last week of the season. So despite the Brewers ended up with only 89 wins or 90 wins, still, obviously, they made the playoffs this past year. But that was, as we mentioned before, due to an expanded postseason. And they were not a good team. They were not a strong team record-wise. They have good individual pieces. We've talked about Yelich. We mentioned Devin Williams, Josh Hader, who wants out of Milwaukee now because that team is going downhill. And they brought in guys like Avisail Garcia and Daniel Vogelbach and Brock Holt. But Colton Wong, I think, is definitely a better acquisition for them. I don't think it's going to make or break this team. I fully expect the Brewers to not be a great team. I don't think they'll be in the postseason. I don't think they'll be competing for a postseason spot because that team has changed a lot. Kane is aging. What else is there really to talk about? Braun is just not even a shell of the player he once was.
I mean, you got Yelich, so.
Yeah, it's really the only thing they have. Brandon Woodruff is their number one starter as of now. That's it's rough. It's not great.
Well,
he's not a bad pitcher. He's not a number one, He's a number one because he's on that staff. They don't have Jeremy Jefferson anymore, don't forget. So we'll see. I expect Wong to do great things, but I don't expect the Brewers to do great things.
So individual success.
Yeah.
Success. Got it. And the last signing, not the last news, we got one more thing after, but last signing.
Well, I've got some extra news after for you, but
yeah. So last signing is so you talked about the Cubs, how they're always losing people. Everyone's basically on their way out, but I don't think they say it that way. You already talked about Jake Arrieta, so I'm not going to beat that. But we didn't talk about a recent World Series champion. Mr. Jock Peterson has joined the Chicago Cubs.
I think that we did talk about this. I think I might have mentioned – I know I mentioned it earlier that he's taking the place of Kyle Schwarber. I don't know if we mentioned it in an earlier episode.
No, you said it before, but we didn't talk about it specifically.
Oh, I thought that we had. Okay. Well, then either way, I like it. He's basically going to replace Kyle Schwarber. He could play both corner outfielders. He's got a lot of playoff experience, as do most of the players on this Cubs team, like Javier Baez, like Anthony Rizzo, like Chris Bryant, like Wilson Contreras, like the pitchers on the staff, like Jake Arrieta and Kyle Hendricks. John Lester's not there anymore. Fine. You still got other guys in the bullpen. Jeremy Jefferson, as I mentioned, he's not a Brewer because he's now a Chicago Cub. There are a lot of good pieces to this team. They just can't put it together. Obviously, Joe Maddon is not the manager there anymore, and he was when they won the World Series. Some bright spots to look at. I think the Cubs are probably – I know there have been talks, or the Mets have revived talks with Chris Bryant. And if they sign him, it's likely to be a rental because he's a free agent this coming off season, as are most players like Conforto, Lindor, Trevor Story, assuming all these guys don't get locked up in advance. Carlos Correa, not Jock Peterson, excuse me. Corey Seager. And I believe it's also Cody Bellinger's last season in his contract. So either way, with that being said, good player. I think if the Cubs do ship anyone off, it's probably going to be around the trade deadline. I think that they still feel confident enough with this core, and I would on paper, but I don't think it's going to take them anywhere. I expect them to be a competitive team, but I don't think it'll be given to them. They can compete, but I'm not expecting them to right off the start. That's kind of just how it is. If they can put it all back together, then they've got a strong shot of doing something productive this year.
Yeah, I mean, very, very it could go – they were a playoff team last year, so.
Yeah, you can't count them out on paper. You can never count that team out on paper.
Yeah. Okay. So what's your news?
So my news for all the Mets fans out there, Seth Lugo, unfortunately, will not be starting, not even in the rotation, but he will not even be in the bullpen. He's going through surgery for his elbow. And he pitched through it last season. It wasn't exactly something he had to have surgery for. Be similar to Noah Syndergaard, wanted to go through with it instead of waiting and see what would happen. Obviously, Syndergaard ended up going with Tommy John, so that was a thing. Obviously, he was going to have to get, and he'd be out a year. So similar, they're expecting him to be back around mid-July, early July, if they're lucky, maybe even late June if they're lucky. Lugo's going to be out for at least the first 2 months of the season, I believe, though. And, we wish him all the best going forward. But, Joey, I know that we mentioned everything except this. We spoke about some of the guys, specifically with the Marlins, that they kind of just had pieces from all over the place. They kind of had guys they brought in out of random because all their stars were out. We mentioned Corey Dickerson, and we mentioned that Anderson was the only guy who stayed there. We mentioned Eddie Diaz. But the one guy we also mentioned, who's no longer with the Marlins and didn't finish the season with them last year, but isn't even with the team he went to, the Toronto Blue Jays, is Jonathan VR, and he's now a New York Met. I don't know if you heard that news, but the Mets have signed him to a 1-year, $3.5 million deal. And I think that that's a good acquisition for the reason being that he is very versatile and he's still a very solid player. He could play second, he'll play third. I think he has experience playing short. He could play all three outfield positions. And I know the Mets wanted to address center field. They already brought in Albert Almora Jr., but even if that doesn't work out, they could put him in left, or they could put Almora in left, or they could put Nimmo in left if Dom Smith isn't going to be that guy. And even though it's very unlikely the DH will be fought back and agreed upon for the NL, if it happens, then I would picture then Dom Smith will probably be seeing time, but they'll want to use VR in a role over there because Conforto's got right field all to himself. That's not going to change. But even so, at third base, if, say, the Mets don't feel comfortable rolling J.D. Davis out there defensively, because VR is a plus defender. So maybe if you want to roll with Davis's bat, and VR doesn't have a bad bat either, he's got a pretty good bat still, then you can roll with Davis for, say, the first 6 or 7 innings of a game. And if you want to switch to a more defensive-oriented play style, you could put VR in for the last 2 or 3 innings of the game. There are a lot of uses they have for him, and I don't expect him to just be a bench piece. $3.5 million is a good cap hit for him. He's a very good player. Not cap hit, excuse me, because there's no salary cap, but he's a very good player. He's been an all-star numerous times before, and it's been recent also. It's not even like, you're seeing it from like 6 or 7 years ago. He's been a solid player, and not even with the greatest of teams. With the Orioles, he was amazing. With the Marlins, I know that they were the Marlins. They made the playoffs. They weren't a terrible team, but let's be realistic. That team has almost zero talent on paper, besides for Brian Anderson. So I like the acquisition. What do you think? As he was a former division rival.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know. It just feels like a lot of money. You said 3.5, and he's like he's basically gonna be like a bench guy. Feels like a lot of money for a bench guy, but I guess he's good depth.
Well, that's why I said I don't believe him to be a complete bench player. There are going to be times they're going to want to start him. I'm sure of that.
If you say so. I don't know. Yeah, so he's yeah. Okay. I guess they'll figure it out.
All the teams that are trying to build on depth, we know you need that to win a World Series. The Red Sox had it in 2018 when you had guys like Brock Holt in your lineup. You had other guys. They had guys in their outfield. They had Eduardo Nunez playing third along with Rafael Devers. The Dodgers had it last year. You had Chris Taylor who command the outfield, even though you already had Bellinger, Peterson, Mookie Betts. You had another guy in Kike Hernandez who's no longer there, but they've had their depth players. They've also had depth in the pitching. The Mets have made acquisitions for pitching. We talked about with Wardy, Jordan Yamamoto, Joey Lucchesi. They brought in Trevor May. And obviously, they still have Jeurys Familia, Edwin Diaz, and Lugo, but Lugo's not going to be pitching for the start of the season, as we mentioned. And in the bench for the Mets, they've already brought in guys like Albert Almora Jr., and now you bring in a guy like Jonathan VR. They also traded for a prospect, Khalil Lee, from the Kansas City Royals, who could be ready to go as early as late in this coming season. So, we'll see about that. But I'm saying they're trying to build on their depth still, as you mentioned. It's a good point. That, you don't think he could be a bench. And I don't expect him to be a starter every day, but I do expect him to see a little more starting time than other guys on their bench.
Yeah, if you guys watch Trevor Bauer's channel, Momentum, he does these things called live at bats, and he did a few of them with this guy, Khalil Lee. So, interesting personality, because that's the kind of guys Bauer likes to hang out with. So, at most, you could definitely say you got a pretty cool personality. Guess you'll have to see the rest. He's a prospect, so he hasn't played that much in the majors. So you can't say that much about him yet. But
there's a lot of upside surrounding him. The Mets took their 26th best prospect that they ended up acquiring in the Steven Matz trade from Toronto, and they shipped him off for Khalil Lee from the Royals. And that was a 3-team trade. I know that we didn't talk about that. I'm shocked you didn't have that. Andrew Benintendi's no longer a Red Sox now. I hope you realize that.
I just realized I forgot to tell you about Benny Biceps. But then again, I don't really care about Benny Biceps because he had a terrible year. But if you want to talk about it, let's talk about it.
Nah, let's What else is there? You mentioned he had a terrible year. There's a lot of upside with him. Royals are not a good team. They're not.
I mean, yeah, he's on the Royals. That's how you got clearly. It's just, but like he's on the Royals. Like I don't
Well,
even
Royals have
know.
some exciting players to watch still. You've got Jorge Soler, Whit Merrifield.
Can you name me one pitcher that excites you on the team?
I wouldn't say excites, but I enjoy watching Jacob Junis. I don't even know.
Yeah,
if you know
exactly.
who
Like
that is.
I can't even like you could have fun hitters, but you gotta have at least
Still got
one.
Salvador Perez at the catching position. Alberto Mondesi, speed demon, steals bases like no tomorrow. Like they're exciting players to watch on this Royals.
Yeah, but
team.
like not one of them is a pitcher. Like, doesn't that bother you?
I guess that's true.
Like
I don't really think about it that way, but
I mean, I appreciate both sides of the ball.
right.
I don't like
No,
it that's one sided. So
that's fair. That's fair to say.
In every sport, I feel that way. So
Yeah.
Oh, and I forgot to mention something else. This was really cool, actually. There was another trade. Totally forgot to mention it. Big trade. So we always talk about a lot of the same teams a lot. We talk about the Braves, and we talk about the Marlins. We even talk about the Cardinals recently. A team we almost never talk about is the Texas Rangers. But guess what? They did good this week. They did good. What'd they do? They traded Elvis Andrus, who I only know because of like some fantasy thing, and they got him for Chris Davis. What?
Yep. That's
ridiculous.
It's good. I mean, he's staying in the same division. They're both staying in the same division. But that adds another power bat to that lineup. I mean, you've already got Joey Gallo and Ruben Odor. That's Chris Davis is a very strong power bat in that lineup. And yeah, I mean that's about it. I don't know if they still have Shin-Soo Choo, but if they do, then he's still pretty serviceable.
I mean, they did this because they lost Marcus Semien. That's the reason they did this. But like they got Elvis Andrus, so now
still a very good defensive shortstop.
Yeah, but is he Marcus Semien level?
Right.
Right.
No, that's fair. That's fair to say.
And they gave him Chris Davis, like one of their best hitters. It's like crazy.
I mean, I don't think the offense will fall flat without Chris Davis. You still have Ramon Laureano and Matt Chapman,
Matt Olson,
and you've also got a pretty solid. Excuse me. You still have Tommy. No, not Tommy LaStella. Excuse me. He was already shipped off to the Giants. We know. We
talked about that.
But Steve, they don't have Tommy on that team, who's a plus hitter, and also Marcano, who's shown a lot of upside. They still have some pretty good pieces to this team offensively.
Yeah, I mean, is this a big move for the Rangers? Because we know that they're always mediocre.
We know his potential, basically.
So is this like at least a playoff push type of move, or not?
I don't think it is. I don't think that they can compete for the playoffs. I think the Rangers have some pretty good offensive talent, but I don't think they have much pitching beside Lance Lynn.
Okay.
I mean, don't forget, no more Corey Kluber, as we spoke about it before.
That's true. It's true. They could have used somebody like that if they're healthy. They could have for sure. Yep. So that's true. As I say, both sides of the ball, you only got one pitcher. At least you got a pitcher, though. Unlike the Royals.
That's true.
Yeah. No, wait, they don't have Lance Lynn. They have he's on the White Sox. They don't even have a pitcher.
Oh, right. That's true.
They don't even have a pitcher. Oh my God.
Something about me saying Lance Lynn was like, I feel like that's also non-existent anymore. And that's true because he is a White Sox now. Remember we used to.
So they don't even have a pitcher. Shoot.
It kind of makes you forget because the most recent thing they've done is sign Liam Hendricks, if I have that correct. And even that wasn't like that was still a good amount. That was a couple weeks ago still.
They haven't done anything in a while. So, you forget.
Yeah, they made all their moves really early. They signed Tony La Russa. They got Lance Lynn. Even Liam Hendricks hasn't.
Got Adam Eden. They got
Adam Eden. Even that stuff, that wasn't so late into the offseason. That was still fairly early. We're about a week and a half, 2 weeks away from pitchers and catchers reporting for their respective teams. And now it's just any fish that's left on the market that hasn't been signed because of all the big names out there. So
not many left.
Or more underrated names.
There are not many big position guys left. So we'll have to wait and see. I mean, Stove is about to cool down. Okay, we did a lot of baseball. I think We've had enough. I
Lot
think
that
we're going to move
happened.
on.
Yeah, this was like the last week's push in terms of the free agents and
Nah,
trade.
but we're still waiting on things,
We're
like
still waiting on a few
Trevor
guys.
Rosenthal's a big one. We're still waiting
Right.
on
Diego
him.
Rizzi's a big
They go to
one.
Rizzi. We're waiting on other things. So
Yeah,
we'll
that's
have
true.
to.
But I don't think that, like that's really only like 2 of 3 or 4 like pieces that are really like significant pieces, at least for most teams to be left on the market that could make a big impact. So we'll see. But yeah, you're right. We did do a lot of baseball today. And that brings us on to football. Joey, the season's over, but that doesn't mean there's not things to talk about.
Oh, I got one thing to talk about. And the reason I think one thing is because I think we could spend a few minutes on this thing. And I think you know where I'm going with this. This was one of the biggest shocks I've ever seen. Well, then again, we know what happened in the past, in the last year. It's not that much of a shock, but it is a big shock. And you know what I'm talking about. You want to guess what I'm talking about?
No, I think that you should just spill it.
All right, baby. I can't believe this, but the Texans released JJ Watt.
Yeah.
Like what? What the heck?
That is shocking. Like I didn't like. I don't want. I want. The only reason I didn't ask you because I don't want to dwell upon it. Now I'm stuck dwelling upon it. But oh my goodness, JJ Watt is just.
He's Mr. Houston. Like,
yeah.
What are you doing?
The face of that franchise. It's not even Deshaun Watson. It hasn't been Deshaun Watson. It's there. JJ Watt is the face of that franchise. He has done everything for that team. He's been crazy good defensively. He was he's probably led, even when he's not on the field, such a big part of that team doing things outside. We know he won Walter Payton Man of the Year.
3 Defensive Player of the Year awards.
That's like
nobody's done that since Lawrence Taylor.
Yeah.
Okay.
More than just a great player. Also, though, he's amazing off the field. We know what he did back when Hurricane Harvey struck Houston, and he started that fundraiser and raised millions of dollars for the city.
And that little girl proposed to him, and he said yes. He's just like a really nice guy.
He is the face of that franchise, both on and off the field. It's just, I really don't know what to say. The only thing I have to say, which is super unrealistic, is I just hope the Giants go and sign him. I don't think it's going to happen, but we have a chance. So we might as well just,
how cool
might as well give him a check already,
How cool would it be if we just let like Dalvin Tomlinson go, or who's our DE called? I forgot his name. Is Dalvin Tomlinson our DE? No, it's Leonard Williams, right? It's Leonard Williams. And so. who's the other side?
Is it? I'm not sure.
I forget, but let that guy go, or maybe even let Williams go. Just sign JJ Watt,
It's like, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of like,
Williams, 12 sacks, Pro Bowler. You can leave.
Yeah,
we'll take JJ. But yeah,
I mean, look, we're still talking. I know Williams had a great year, but we're still talking about JJ Watt here.
Like it's JJ Watt.
Yeah, like why wouldn't you want JJ Watt on your team?
Which brings me to my next question, Josh. Have you thought about, since I know you know this news before, 2 or 3 teams that he might go to? And would you share?
I can't think of many teams that are seriously lacking a lot of defensive help. If you would have asked me 2 years ago, I would have said the Bucks. But they brought in both JPP and Ndamukong Suh, and we all know where that's eventually led with a certain quarterback who just won his 7th Super Bowl.
Shall remain
anyway.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't know, then you're living under a rock. That's just the way it is. He's the greatest quarterback of all time.
Sad to say,
I would have said the Bucs years ago, but no need for that anymore.
So
this is either going to sound really stupid or really smart. I would wonder if the Bills would go out and get him. They have a strong defense. And I think that even though he's not J.J. Watt back when he started, he's still J.J. Watt, still very good. We mentioned 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards. And it wasn't even just 3. It was 3 straight, as we mentioned. That's ridiculous. It's crazy. He's clearly one of the best defenders in the league still. He might be the best in the AFC. He still might be the best defensive lineman in the AFC.
Best obviously is Aaron Donald.
The Bills. Right. Like, he's the best in the NFL. Like, I don't think there's much question to that. But with that being said, the Bills are close. They know they're close, but they're still a piece away. They're kind of like sitting in the same spot as the Vegas Golden Knights of hockey. They knew they were one piece away. They're close, but they're still a piece away. And they brought in Alex Petrangelo, and now
So
they're
you're saying that JJ Watt could be the Bills' Petrangelo?
basically, yeah.
I mean,
That's
yeah, why not? He's a
you know.
powerful, he's a captain, he's a defenseman, Yeah, sure, why not? He's got
Yeah.
all the same things.
The only thing JJ Watt hasn't done in his career basically is win a Super Bowl. Like, that's basically all he hasn't done. He's already got personal
yeah.
accolades, like Defensive Player of the Year. He's won Walter Payton Man of the Year. He's been to the playoffs numerous times. The one thing he hasn't done is win a Super Bowl yet. That's basically all it's been.
So I thought of 3 teams. One of them you said was not likely. I actually think it's even more likely, even though they have so many defenders. I think the Buccaneers are actually one of the strongest cases because that factor that Tom Brady is a better GM than Bill Belichick. You know how they make all those jokes, but literally Tom Brady brought in Leonard Fournette. He brought in Antonio Brown. He brought in Gronk, his boy. Like, why not? Like, I feel like Tom would.
Yeah.
I know it doesn't make sense, but like JJ's had an injury history in the past, so maybe they could use him as like a reserve guy or like in key moments in the game, like third down and stuff. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe they could do special schemes just for JJ. Like, Todd Bowles did great job with the defense this year. Like, why not?
True.
Like, but then again, I hear you. They have so many studs, and he might not want to.
Also got, because Watt plays generally on the left side, I believe, and you've already got a very young player on that left side who's only getting better in Shaquille Barrett. So,
do you think the Buccaneers have any weaknesses or anything they can improve on?
Yeah, I think that I think partially they're secondary because they're young.
Yeah, their
so
backs. Their backs are not so strong. At least not their safeties. Like, I don't even know who their safeties.
Yeah,
I can't even. What if now this might be crazy because he just won the Super Bowl. But what if they trade one of those linemen for safety, like a stud safety? I don't know who. I'm trying to think on my head who's disgruntled or not.
I don't know.
Years ago, I would have said Earl Thomas. Like, an Earl Thomas. But like, yeah. Like, you saw how Jamal Adams last year, like, I'm sure there's going to be somebody like that next year that's like going to be pissed, as a safety. Like, I feel like they'd be willing to do it.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, but
but then again, it's not about the Bucs right now. It's just about JJ Watt. So.
Anyway, but I had 2 actually much stronger candidates. So the first one is the Steelers. Why the Steelers? They had a great defense, right? But then again, it kind of fell apart later on. But that's the real reason is because, well, first of all, Tomlin's one of the best coaches in the league, for sure. No doubt.
He reunited with his brother.
But second of all, yeah, obviously, he'd be with both TJ and Derek Watt, his brothers. Like, I think he would definitely be willing to go to a team like that just to hang out with his brothers. Because plus, the Steelers were one of the best teams last year. We know they were kind of frauds at the end, but maybe they'll use this as a lesson, a wake-up call, and maybe
frauds at the end. I think they were frauds the whole season.
Nah, well, not in the beginning. When the first 3, 4, 5 games were great until Claypool's like,
okay, fine,
losing.
Yeah.
I never heard of her. Then I'm like,
right.
Oh no,
we don't talk about.
You don't know what you did. You don't know what you did, man. You brought the Corvette into the game. Now you're gonna lose. And then all this TikTok and all that happened, and it was terrible. But the point is, JJ. Remember how this season JJ called people out like, you guys aren't trying? I never have respect for people who don't try. Like, if JJ came, he could literally change the locker room in the best way possible. I don't think he'd complain. I think he'd actually try to change the team for the better. I think he'd try to make them like mature, grow up, I really believe that. Mm-hmm. Now, if for some reason he doesn't want to go there, the only other team that makes perfect sense to me is the Green Bay Packers. Why? JJ Watt was born and raised in the state of Wisconsin.
They're also a piece away defensively. That offense.
Plus, that offense is basically what carried them the whole year, and the defense wasn't amazing, but the Smith brothers and Amos were pretty good. Jair Alexander also, but like, they really lacked enough like grit on the line. And JJ, with all the leadership and experience he has, could bring that to the end. You could have, I made this comparison to someone before, how like 25 years ago, the Packers traded from the Falcons for Brett Favre. They had their offensive guy, and he was great, and they were in the playoffs, but they never were able to win a big one until free agency started. That was one of the first years free agents started, and who did they sign? They signed Reggie White. Everyone knows who Reggie White is. That changed the course of their team for forever, and they won the Super Bowl the next year because they had their guy on offense and their guy on defense. The Packers obviously have had their guy on offense for years, Aaron Rodgers. Now they really could have their guy on defense, JJ Watt. So it'd be so cool if he goes to the Giants. But if I'm a betting man, he's going to the Packers. Put it in the bank. That's what I'm going to say about that. I got nothing else to say. Yeah, but I can't believe they released him. What are you doing, Houston?
Man.
You idiot.
As Hugh said, they are the city that sold their soul. And this time they didn't even sell. They just flat out let go. So
they didn't sell. They gave it away and they added money to the deal. So stupid. But whatever. I think that's all.
There isn't much more to say about this than
Josh. Oh, man. Hello? Josh, what would you say? There isn't much more to say about this than what?
Yeah, I'm sorry if I got cut off there. But there's not much more to say than the fact that if the Texans are a joke of a team the next 2 or 3 years, that they completely brought it on themselves. They didn't even need Bill O'Brien to screw it up for them this time. They don't. So with that being said,
let's move on to hockey because I'm through with talking about football.
Yeah.
I'm pissed off.
This is about as stupid as it could get. Yeah.
So we're trying to do something a little different. Usually we get a little bit more specific about teams, but our team hasn't been doing so well. But I will say in the last game, there were 3 fights in the game, and I'm not going to show footage because, violence. But good fights, though. Good fights, man. 2 easy ones and a third one that we shouldn't have won. You know what I'm talking about, but because he's a starter, but it was like his first fight. So I give him props for standing his ground and willing to fight and not being a wuss. Good for you, Pavel. Anyway, so we're trying to do like a monthly review. It's been it's been over a full month since the season started. So let's get into the standings. So which division would you like to start with first, Josh?
I think we should start in the one where everyone predicted a certain team to be a Stanley Cup champion at the end of this year, and that'd be the West Division.
So in the West Division, leading is Vegas Golden Knights, who got there, Alex Pietrangelo. And guess who's right in second? The team that lost Alex Pietrangelo, the St. Louis Blues. Pretty nuts. I mean, this is not really a shock. Let's be honest here. I think the biggest shock is that the Coyotes are much higher than I thought they'd be. I thought they'd be dead last.
Now, I'll give you one more of a shocker. The thing that shocks me the most is the fact that it's not even – I know it's going to seem this way because of the fact that there are teams in the bottom. But the first 6 teams are all above 500 or at least 500. So it makes it seem – I was going to say the Minnesota Wild. I know that they're in 6th place in the division. Only the top 4 teams are going to make it. But for crying out loud, the Anaheim Ducks are in 4th right now. And they've also surprised a lot of people. John Gibson's been on another level. Shattenkirk's helped out that blue line a lot, along with Christian Juice, who's starting to emerge as a young defenseman. They got him from the Washington Capitals. We know. Of course, Ricard Raquel, Jakob Silfverberg, Ryan Getzlaf are never guys you want to look past. And you've got Jamie Drysdale and Trevor Zegras in the prospect pool. But we're not talking about the Ducks. I think that they're going to be better than people expect them to be, but I don't think they'll be that final and 4th seed. I think the Minnesota Wild are going to get it. And
they're going to have to
let me not jump to conclusions that fast. Kirill Kaprizov has been on another level. If he's not a lock right now to win the Calder, I don't know who is. He's been so fun to watch. He's been outstanding. I know that they're only 5-5 in their last 10, but they're a hardworking team. And this might be, actually, I'm not going to say the top teams to contend with might be the 3 hardest teams to contend with in the entire NHL right now.
These
in
are
the Golden
3 of
Knights,
the best
Blues,
teams in the
Avalanche.
league.
I
All
mean,
in one division.
we've already spoken about it in the preseason, in the episodes we did during the preseason, but the Golden Knights and Avalanche are 2 of the 3 best teams in the NHL, and the other one is Boston. They're not in this division right now, obviously, but of the 3 teams we would have expected to be in talks for winning the Stanley Cup right before the season began, the Avalanche were number 1, the Golden Knights were number 2 with the acquisition of Alex Pietrangelo, and the Boston Bruins were 3 because they're always the top seed in the Central, and they seem to just make it farther than the Lightning. I know the Lightning got over the hump, but they just don't have great playoff success normally. They finally did it this past year. But we've spoken about it. We're not going to get into it. So to say though, the Minnesota Wild are fighting hard, and I mean, even though they're in 6th, they have a better win percentage than the rest of these teams. I mean, they haven't played as many games. Don't forget, they've only played 11 games. The other teams have played have played 14 or more, in terms of not the Avalanche. I'm not talking about the top 3. I'm talking about just the teams that are battling it out for the 4 spot right now. So both the Ducks and the Coyotes have played at least 3 more games than the Minnesota Wild. Wild fight hard. I think they're a fun team to watch. I don't think that they're going to make it deep in the playoffs if they make it, but they're fun to watch. That's been the biggest surprise of this division. So, Joey, why don't we go ahead and do our predictions for how we think this division is going to pan out in order now that we've got it in front of us?
So I think you mean 1, 2, 3, 4? What are you saying?
Yeah, we could do the whole thing.
So I think we're going to I think Vegas is going to keep that spot, but it's going to be super, super close. I think the Avs are just too good to be 3rd place. I think they're going to be a game or 2 behind in wins with Vegas. So they're going to be number 2. I think St. Louis is definitely going to be number 3. They're one of the best teams in the league. And I got to kind of agree with the Wild thing because while the Ducks are doing great, I don't think it's going to last. I think Kirill Kaprizov is the real deal because I know what everyone's saying about the Calder thing. Well, let's be honest. He technically doesn't really, really deserve it because of the fact that he played in the KHL in the past,
right.
And all that stuff.
Yeah,
I know. The reason he's doing really well is because he's had a ton of experience in an actually professional league. It's not like Swedish Hockey League or Liga or something. It's the KHL. Right. It's the second best league in the world. So he's ready. He's not a rookie. He's not going to make stupid mistakes. He's just going to play.
On paper, he's a rookie, though.
I know, but the point is rookies cannot guarantee make the playoffs, but he's not really a rookie in the sense, in the traditional sense. So he's going to bring them to the playoffs. They're going to barely make the 4 seed. I think the Yotes will be 5. I think the Ducks are going to slide to 6, and I think Kings and Sharks are going to stay exactly where they are because God, these teams need help.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on the top 3, exact same order. I think Vegas is, they're playing very, very strong hockey right now. They're 7-2-1. They just knocked off the Avalanche the other day. And that was not an easy game. Don't get me wrong. I don't think that it's a lock. I won't be surprised to see the Avalanche take the top spot from Vegas. But the Blues are just not the top seed for me. I don't even think they're number 2. I think that Vegas and Colorado have to go back-to-back 1st and 2nd. Whether or not that changes their order, I don't know. I would predict the Golden Knights to stay ahead. I think they're one more piece closer than the Avalanche are, especially the Avalanche. I know that they got something back in return for it, but don't forget they shipped off one of their defensemen in Cole earlier this year. And now you're playing with another guy like Connor Timmins, who's still very young. He's got upside. But if you were to compare him as the youngest defenseman on the Avalanche to the youngest a highly rated and respected prospect, he's going to they're talking about him as a Jeff Bukaboom type player. He's just such a strong fundamental player, and he's so young. It's just okay, whatever. There's just so much to like about both. But I think the Golden Knights and Avalanche go 1 and 2, Blues at 3. I think they'll be a lock. Those 3 will be locks, I think, for the top 3 spots. as I said, Minnesota, they'll be in fourth. I think that the Anaheim Ducks, though, might actually finish ahead of the Coyotes. I know I don't think they're going to keep it as strong as they are to stay ahead of the Wild, but I think that they've turned a lot of heads this year. And the Coyotes, in my opinion, I think that they're going to trade Darcy Kemper. And as great a goaltender as Ranta is also, I don't think they can ride the rest of the way with just Dante Ranta. Their goaltending's been a big part of their success. I have to say the Ducks ahead because Gibson's been on another level, and the guys are stepping up like Christian Juice, like Danton Heinen, like Troy Terry. All those guys are stepping up. I really like that Ducks team and what they have going forward. I have them ahead of the Coyotes, who are a bit downtrending right now, even with young pieces like Connor Garland and Clayton Keller, and also there's one more who's also in that he's on the defense.
Schmaltz. I mean Halmerson.
No, whatever. We're not going to get into that.
Yeah,
maybe it's either Chick or Osterley. Maybe it's Osterley.
I don't know, man. Arizona is one of the hardest.
But either way, yeah. They've definitely turned a lot of heads. A lot of people expect them to be complete trash, and they're not. They're fighting it out. But we're also, as we mentioned, just a month into this season, roughly. So I think that they'll be in sixth. As for the Kings and Sharks, yeah, I don't want to count the Sharks out with Erik Karlsson and Brent Burns and Logan Couture and Timo Meyer and Tomas Hertl. But unfortunately, I have to.
I think their goaltending is the real problem. I think they have
that's just it. Like you can't win a game. You can't win a game without good goaltending. You just can't. You can't be a successful team without good goaltending. It's been proven before. All the teams that have the Vegas Golden Knights, good goaltending. The St. Louis Blues, solid goaltending. Colorado Avalanche, excellent goaltending. Boston Bruins, great goaltending. Philadelphia Flyers, good goaltending. Washington Capitals, good goaltending. The New York Islanders, good goaltending. Rangers have some good goaltending. The only team that was really knocked out of the playoffs last year that legitimately had all-star goaltending early was the Arizona Coyotes because of that tandem of Darcy Kemper and Ante Ranta. And the only reason they got knocked out early is because they played the hottest team at the time in the West, which was the Colorado Avalanche. And that's just it.
Well, they weren't the only team that had good goaltending.
I'm saying that got
don't forget
out.
in the play-in round, the Winnipeg Jets were in, and they have
fine. That's true. Jets aren't in this division.
No, but okay. I'm sorry. I thought we were talking. Okay, my bad.
I'm saying that made it that not qualifying round because anything happened. Like there were so many upsets in the qualifying round. I'm talking about straight up like best of 7 series.
Gotcha. Okay.
So anyway, yeah, I think that it's going to stay the same. The only thing I think that's going to change is that the Avalanche are going to slide places with the Blues. They're going to swap places. And I think the Ducks and Coyotes are going to swap, and the Wild are going to swap with whichever team is in fourth over there.
All right. Okay.
So, yeah.
Let's move on. Let's move on to the Central. If that's cool with you.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go to the Central. So really interesting this year. The Lightning all these teams are in the Central, usually aren't in the Central. But yeah, Lightning are at the top. So that's not really a surprise. Previous Stanley Cup champions. I think the biggest shock to me, even though I haven't read everything else, is that the Panthers are the second seed in this division. What the heck? Everything else doesn't surprise me, but the Panthers being second surprises me a lot. What's going on, Josh?
What's going on is they're getting excellent depth performances. We know a guy who came over from the Tampa Bay Lightning, Carter Verhaeghe, is one of the top scorers in the NHL right now.
He's playing very well.
And they're getting good goaltending from not even just Sergei Bobrovsky, but who's the other guy they brought in? What's his name?
The goalie?
Yeah, their second goalie.
I forgot his name. Backup goalie. Chris Driedger.
Yeah, Driedger's. He's been lights out as well.
He had a shutout, right?
Yeah, he's been lights out. He's been amazing for them. So yeah. I think that's what separates it for the Panthers. So you're saying that is your biggest shocker, that the Panthers are just completely ripping it up.
Well, I know everyone probably wants to talk about how the Blackhawks are like on the 5 instead of – actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, no, I'm actually more shocked about the Stars. I take it back. The Stars might be more shocking because this is a team that was in the Stanley Cup Finals last year. That actually might be more – I don't know what's more shocking, that they're playing – that their record's that bad or the Panthers are good. I'm not sure.
Well, you look at their record, they're still 5-3-4. I mean, they've earned a point in 9 of the 12 games they've played. That's still a very good percentage.
It's weird because, like, the thing that
Yes,
bothers
it's
me is
crazy that
that
they've
the
lost
games.
5 in a row.
Yeah, that really bothers. Like, how's that possible? Because like they got Kudobin back, so I thought the problems would be solved. Like, what's going on here? Because I know Joe Pavelski is hitting up the league right now.
Yeah, he is, and also, I mean, Miro Heiskanen has been nothing shy of amazing again.
He's
So
excellent. He's excellent. So
yeah,
yeah.
look, that's it. Don't
Are
expect
you
them to
not
be
shocked
that
by
good.
this? Like, this was a team that made the like, what's different about this team? The only thing I can think of is Corey Perry. You know, I can't think of it.
I mean, they don't have Matthias Janmark either anymore. Let's not forget about that.
I
He was
just
a big depth piece.
but yeah,
I'm gonna go ahead and say though, and you hit it right on the nail, that the Chicago Blackhawks are completely like Alex DeBrincat has been on another level this year. Like him and Patrick Kane, you can't bet against Patrick Kane and Alex DeBrincat this year
I guess it's
because
more of a
they've
surprise.
turned so many heads. I know that DeBrincat, on the other hand, has only gotten better each year. And even if it doesn't show on the stat sheet, it shows in his game, his work ethic, and what he wants to and strive to be. And I just want to say that he might be the hottest player in the NHL right now in terms of scoring and scoring when it matters the most, in the clutchest moments, in the biggest moments, game time to sit, when it's basically like play will make or break your game. He's won a few games. Like I think he might, I don't know if he leads the league, but he's one of the team leaders in game winning goals. He might be the team leader on the Blackhawks in game winning goals. And he has been so good. And the Blackhawks in 8 of their last 10 have registered a point. Like that's excellent for them. Especially after they said they're straight up going to be rebuilding. Their goaltending has surprisingly been somewhat sturdy. Malcolm Subban, we know, showed some pretty good hope with the Vegas Golden Knights at times in his career. I don't think he's a complete joke. I think that he does have there's something there that they can work with. And look, they've had some great goalies in the past. Obviously they had Robert Lehner after, for most of last season before he got shipped off to Vegas. They had Corey Crawford manning that well before that. So I think that, who knows? Maybe
But
he might
it
develop
doesn't
really
make
well.
sense, because
I
like
know it doesn't make
there's
sense,
no
but
Doc, there's no Taves. Like, they
that's,
should not be playing this well.
and I can only imagine what's going to happen when they get those two guys back.
I mean, I would think it'd be a lot better than what they're doing now. So yeah.
And they're already pretty decent right now. So
yeah. I mean, so I guess we just might as well make our predictions now, because nothing else really surprises me. I mean, I feel like the Preds have always been kind of a good team, but they've never really something's up with their goaltending. Like, something's up.
Yeah.
So I'm not really that surprised. And Red Wings dead last. Not a shock at all. Everything else makes sense.
Yeah.
I think
I'm gonna.
Yeah. So go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't bet against the Lightning right now. I got to put them in first. But I'm gonna have the Hurricanes finishing in second, and I think that the Panthers are not going to finish in third either. I think that the Stars will finish in third. I think the Panthers will grab that 4 spot. I've got the Blue Jackets in fifth, with the Blackhawks in sixth, Predators seventh, Red Wings eighth. I know a lot of people are probably going to be crapping on me saying, how on earth could you put the Predators in seventh place? I'll tell you how I could put them in seventh place. That goaltending is absolute garbage right now. That's how you do that. There was so much hype surrounding UC Saros, and guess what? He has been trash. Rene hasn't helped him, but I mean, it's not even like they lose, with at least like a valiant effort. They haven't registered any points in overtime when they don't win, or later when they don't win. That's a problem. You have to be able to at least put a little more fight into it. I think that, even if you have to lose a game, we've seen it most notably with the Rangers. So many times they've gone to overtime, but have, unfortunately for them, been unable to squeeze out a second point. But you know what? Who knows? Because if they could have a second hot half of the year, then maybe one of those games that ended up going overtime might be what saves them and just barely punches them into the playoffs. I could think it'd be the same thing with the Predators that they could miss it by that much. And I'm saying they'll be in 7th, but I don't think it's going to be that they're clearly going to be the 7th seed. I think it'll be close between the Jackets, Blackhawks, and Predators fighting out for that 4th spot. Right now, though, I have it going to the not Carolina Hurricanes, the Florida Panthers, because I don't think they're going to stay as hot as they are right now. They still have a bunch of meetings left with the Lightning and the Hurricanes and the Stars and the Blue Jackets and the Blackhawks, and they're all playing good hockey. And even the Predators and Red Wings, the Red Wings aren't a joke. Their goaltending's been pretty good. They just can't score. That's just the reality of it. Thomas Greiss has been excellent for them in terms of when it comes to how many goals he allows a game.
But it doesn't matter how many goals you save if your team
can't score. Exactly, and it doesn't help. So yeah, that's my prediction for it. I don't know if you have what you have different.
I mean, it's a little different, but I don't think it's that crazy if you really hear me out. Obviously, Lightning's number 1.
Yeah.
Panthers, get the hell out of here. I know you're on a great streak, but this happens every year in every sport. Some team gets hot in the beginning, and it does not last. That's you, buddy. Get the hell out of here. I'm sorry. You don't have enough on your team for me to believe in you yet. Plus, I'm pretty sure the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, haven't they always been like fringe playoff guys, like teams? They're always like, they're always like super close, but they never make it. So like, why would that change? I think Hurricanes are number 2. I agree. Now, what might shock you is I actually don't think the Blue Jackets are going to make the playoffs, only because the way John Tortorella is dealing with all of his players, we all know what happens with Torts. He is really great the first few years, but then a certain point comes along where people have had enough. We saw it in Tampa. We saw it in New York. And I think we're about to see it in Columbus. It was one thing when he traded Dubois. I could have let it go because they got Laine. But the fact that he just benched Laine, I'm getting very, very worried about this team. So I feel like he might get fired. They might, but his contract's up at the end of the year, so they might just not renew it. But I feel like, especially if they don't make it, I feel like they might not make it. Yeah, I think it all depends on how much Roslovic like steps up, because he's playing phenomenal.
He has stepped up big time.
I think, yeah. So I think it's gonna be the Lightning, the Hurricanes 2. I think the Blackhawks will be 3, and I think the Stars will be number 4. I know they're in a funk, but this team was loaded last year, and they lost one really good player. I don't think they're gonna. I really think they're gonna come back. I actually believe that they had the COVID protocol and everything. It pushed them back. So I have faith it's going to change for the better for them. So I think it's gonna be Lightning, Hurricanes, Blackhawks, Stars. Then I'm going to put the Panthers as the number 5. So close. Blue Jackets 6, and then 7 and 8 the same. So
okay.
I want to go to the Canadian division now because
let's go for it. Let's also try to hurry it up. I know that
because so this one's gonna be much quicker because we're not surprised by this. We knew that the Leafs were going to be number 1, even though the Oilers and Connor McDavid, and even though the Canadians had the best offseason, we knew the Leafs were going to be number 1. It might not last so long. It's hard to say, but I'm just going to do my predictions quickly. Senators stay at the 7. Just get that out of the way. I think Leafs and Canadians, it might switch. I'm not sure. I think 1, 2, 3 is going to be the same. I think, and the Canucks just have gone on the downhill ever since they lost Markstrom, Toffoli, and everybody. So the only real thing I don't know is who's going to get number 4. The Jets or the Flames. And it's really, really hard to tell because the records are like super, super identical. They have very similar styles of play. Like, they both now have very good goaltenders. Before, I wouldn't easily say that, but now the Jets have Hellebuck and the Flames have Markstrom. So I don't know. I think the only reason the Flames, I think I'm going to give it to the Jets because now the Jets have finished their drama, with the whole Laine thing. And now they have Pierre Dubois, who's going to be fine, new change of scenery, while the Flames have their own problems with Sam Bennett and that whole thing. And that might F them up. I'm going to predict, I hope that doesn't happen, but I have a prediction. You know what I'm saying? That's the only thing. That's the only real difference between these two teams that I can really think of. I think the Jets just have enough firepower to win because Hellebuck's going to be on the other side stopping pucks. I don't know if you saw recently, they had games last week. He had some of the best saves I've ever seen last week. He played amazingly. So I don't know. It's hard to say, but I'm going to do Jets at 4. Okay. What about you?
All right. This might shock you a little bit. I have the Canadians winning this division, just straight up. I don't even think it's going to be the Maple Leafs. I know that the Maple Leafs are playing hot, but let's be realistic. I want to be realistic at least to say, I think it would be realistic to say that I don't think even the Maple Leafs can keep playing the way they are for this entire season. They're not an easy team to knock off, but let's be realistically speaking, the Canadians, I think, are more well-rounded. In my opinion, the Maple Leafs are just way too much of an offensive-oriented team that if you shut down that offense, they have nothing else to beat you with. Frederik Andersen's been great. He's still very shaky sometimes. That defense is just also too shaky. I know on paper it sounds great because you have guys like Justin Hall and Jake Muzzin, and they acquired TJ Brody, but I just think that they're too much of an offensive-oriented defense. Now, don't get me wrong. They've only lost 3 games in regulation, and they've only lost 4 games total. But it's been proven that when their offense can't do anything, they can't win games. They happened to the Oilers, happened to the Canadians before. It's just a proven thing already. I don't think that they will finish.
I know, but I just don't think.
I think they'll finish in second, though. I don't think you could put them any lower than second. They'll definitely be one of the top 2. But this is where it gets interesting. For me, I have the Jets finishing third. I don't think the Oilers.
Wow, really? Okay.
I don't think the Oilers are proven enough to finish in third, but I think they'll finish in fourth. It's just the Jets have been more of a consistent team throughout the season. The Oilers were a very good first half team last year and were an atrocious second half team last year.
But McDavid was out, wasn't he?
I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure he was. Wasn't he out? And
the second half, I don't think he was.
But he was out at a certain time in the season. I remember because people were saying, look how Draisaitl is playing without McDavid. I remember hearing that.
Either way, whatever. We're not getting into it. I still don't think they're proven because the 2 years prior, they didn't come close to making the playoffs. And that goaltending is still a little
shaky.
Yeah, it's a little undefined for me. I think Koskinen's great, but I still think he needs another year or 2 of development. But I still think he's good enough that they could definitely sneak in as the 4 seed. As for the Flames, Canucks, and Senators, I wouldn't change that order. I think it'll be Flames in 6, Canucks. It'll be Flames in 6, Canucks in 6, Senators in 7. This is, in my opinion, the second hardest division to compete in because really, on paper, I think the Canucks realistically still had a shot. And even the Senators aren't atrocious on paper. They're just not a good team when it comes to their actual play. You still have Stepan's still a pretty good player. You've got Brady Tkachuk. You've got Thomas Chabot. You've got Connor Brown. You've got Colin White. You've got Tim Stützle. You've got Evgeny Dadonov. They brought him in. And Matt Murray in net is not terrible, but they just don't play well enough. That team should be a lot better playing than they are. That team's a lot better on paper than they actually play. But anyway, that's how I would have it rounded out. But the order for me would be Canadians, Maple Leafs, Jets, Oilers for the top 4, and then Flames, Canucks, Senators for the bottom 3. Let's move on to the Metro, Joey, and let's wrap it up here.
Well, this year's called the East, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, excuse me, the East Division. Yeah.
Yes. No surprise here that the Bruins are at the top, Yeah,
and they got real lucky with the return of David Pastrnak because I just want to say he was supposed to be out
for a while. So
he was supposed to be out for a good 2.5 to 3 months. Some people were saying even 3.5 to 4 months, and he got it back within less than 2 months. That is crazy. It just shows his work ethic, I think, and how patient he was with it. He wasn't overworking himself in whatever he was able to do in his recovery time. So props to him. But I really hate the fact that the Bruins are in first place right now.
I hate it too. I mean, it just sucks because they got Rask and he's really good.
And even without Char and Krug,
so good they don't even need a good defense. They don't even need it. They don't need Char. They don't need Krug. They just need Rask. Sucks.
Yeah.
Really
but guys like Brandon Carlo and Jeremy Lauzon and Charlie McAvoy have all stepped up big time for that team. I also just want to point out how they've lost their only 2 regulation games to the same team, the New York Islanders. And you know what? Normally I'd hate on the Islanders, but this is the only thing I love them for. The fact that they're the only team that could shut Boston the hell up. You know what I mean? It's just so annoying to see.
If I hate any team more than the Islanders,
it's the Bruins.
Not even close.
It's not even a competition anymore.
Yeah. Because They just stink. I don't like them.
Yeah.
I don't
And
like them.
it's a shame because most of their players, at least in my opinion, are likable players. Like I love Bergeron as an individual. It just pains me now that
I
I
wouldn't say most. I would say Bergie and Pasta and
yeah,
everyone
like I
else.
love
Okay.
Pasternak as a player, and I love Bergeron as a player, and even people just overall off the ice. They both do great things off the ice. But Marchand's just a dick in
He
general. He's the
sucks,
biggest
bro.
dick in the
His
NHL. There's
nickname
not a
is
question about
literally
that. And McAvoy's such a fun guy to watch on the ice. Same thing with Jake DeBrusk and Craig Smith. They're really fun players to watch, but they're
yeah.
just so annoying. And even Tuukka Rask, like it's just annoying how his situation, like he is where he is situation wise, because he's also one of the greatest guys off the ice to be around and to
Yeah,
watch.
I mean, yeah.
He's not a pucker,
If you ever watch Puck
like
Personality, he
it's just yeah, like
he's
on
big.
the ice, they're so annoying.
Yeah,
That's just it. Um,
stinks. Really stinks. They don't deserve it. They're spoiled, man. They don't
yeah,
deserve it.
it just sucks. It's not even like they're like punched up against the cap either with it because of
Yeah, I told
so
you. I mentioned it months ago how like the first line of the Maple Leafs,
like the cheapest. Yeah, no, not the
like
cheapest. The Bruins is. I'm
the
saying
Bruins,
Maple Leafs.
all their first line is like I forgot what it was. I think the first line of the Maple Leafs is equal to like all of their forward salaries or
Yeah,
something like
it's
that.
crazy.
Something crazy like that.
It's crazy. Marchand, Bergeron, and Pasternak all combine for just barely, a little bit more than one of the top three forwards in Marner, Tavares, and Matthews for the Maple Leafs. They all
How's
combine.
that even possible? Like, are they just taking really
It's
cheap deals?
ridiculous. They all take like 6.5 or 5.5 million a year, and every one of the top three forwards for the Maple Leafs take like 11, if not more, a year.
It's weird
You know?
because like one of them is a free agent, Tavares, so that kind of makes sense because you want your guy. But the other
Right,
two
like
are
they wanted to lock
freaking,
him up. But Marner and Matthews, like, are you kidding? They're both literally on entry level
they're
contracts,
like
and
so young. Why are you paying them?
like arbitration is already that ridiculous for them. It's crazy.
Yeah, because the problem is when you give them this many contracts this early, that means it's only going to go up.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what'd you do? Anyway, let's just make our predictions because
Screw it.
I'm getting really sad. Talking
Yeah,
about the Bruins. Yeah, they're staying at 1. Sorry, Carter Hart. Flyers staying at 2. This is where I get stuck because I don't know, man. I know the Islanders are a good team. I just don't think they're that good. I think they're good, but I feel like they're not that. I don't know if that makes sense, you know? Uh, Agree or disagree, but like I think the Capitals are probably better than them. I really believe that.
so you think the Capitals are in third?
I think they're third, and I think the Islanders probably gonna get the fourth, but they might not. Like I feel like maybe Pittsburgh or even the Rangers might get the fourth seed. It really depends because everyone's talking about how like once the offense gets going, it's over. And I actually do believe that. Once the offense gets going, the team's hot. And I think both the Penguins and Rangers probably will hit that point very soon. I mean, Penguins already got a breath of fresh air. After losing Rutherford, they just we didn't talk about this, but what do you think? They got Brian Burke and Ron Hextall in the front office now, and we all know about Brian Burke. He's the one that 10 years ago traded for on the same week Dion Phaneuf and Phil Kessel. And while it didn't help them so much in the playoffs, it definitely made their team competitive for years, until they eventually
Yeah.
tear it all over again. And Ron Hextall, we all know about Ron Hextall. So I don't know. They might make some moves, bring them up. Like, we'll have to see. I still believe in the Rangers. We got a lot of great players on our team. I think one of us is going to take that fourth spot. I really do. I'm not sure who. But whoever doesn't will get the remaining spots. And I think Devils and Sabres are staying exactly where they are. I don't think they're moving, man. I said it since the beginning. I knew these guys were going to be bottom feeders. They're literally, by the way, funny joke. I'm pretty sure their number seedings are the same seedings they were in the draft. I'm pretty sure Devils selected 7 and Sabres selected 8 or something like that.
That's hilarious.
Which says a lot about their team because I was really mad. I'm like, you picked Jack Quinn and I don't even remember the guy that the Devils picked. No.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah. No,
Jack Quinn and what's his name?
Pastor.
Pick those two over Cole Perfetti and Marco Rossi. And I'm just like,
yeah, that was stupid.
Those two, I'm like, what are you like? The next two teams picked those guys up because they were steals. I'm like, what are you doing? That's another thing about the Wild. They're getting Marco Rossi coming up soon. Like when he comes up, they're gonna like, what are you doing?
The Jets are getting Perfetti.
Yeah, those are like, what are you doing? Like you're a terribly run organization, you two. You're terrible. You should be ashamed of yourself. Like one of you is in New York, but not New York, and one of you is metropolitan, but you're not even actually in New York. Like you're fake. You're fake. You're fake. What are your predictions, Josh? Let's get the hell out of here.
I've got Bruins and Flyers 1-2, but this is where it gets really, really interesting. Okay,
Told you. Told you.
you gotta hear me out.
I'm hearing you out, man.
I want to put the Rangers in 3, and I'll
I was
tell you
afraid
why.
to go that high. I thought you were gonna say I'm
I
a
will
homer.
tell you why, because everyone is saying that the defense is that team's problem. And you know what? While it might look like that, they obviously have lost more games total, both in overtime and regulation, than they won. The defense and goaltending has been the least of their problems. It's the offense. And right now they're playing without Artemi Panarin. Mika Zibanejad's taken a little bit of time to get going. They're not getting a
After
lot
getting
of support.
COVID, people forget
Right.
that. You know,
They're not getting a lot of support from their top 6. It's really just Panarin and Ryan Strome now who have started to get going together.
Pavel
Panarin out,
a little bit.
Pavel Buchnevich has been strong. But it's the fact that they're getting all their offense almost entirely from their back end, like Brendan Lemieux and Phil DiGiuseppe and Julian Gauthier and Brett Howden, who are creating all the great chances. And Capo Caco, he's been in the top 6, so we can give him some credit also. And Alexis Lafreniere, who only scored 1 goal, but can we be realistic? He has had so many chances, and he's playing against the hardest division in the NHL.
Without a fact, without training camp, without a longer training camp, without
training camp, no World Juniors tournament, that he didn't play in the World Juniors. He was eligible to, but did.
You know,
he had, and he's playing against the top team's defensive pairing. You know, it was PK Subban and Ryan Murray against the Devils. It was Chris Letang and John Marino for the Penguins. It was Ryan Pulock and Nick Leddy for the Islanders. Charlie McAvoy and Brandon Carlo, or Charlie McAvoy and Jeremy Lauzon for the Bruins. They haven't played the Flyers yet. He played against John Carlson and Dmitry Orlov on the Capitals. Like, they're playing against Rasmus Dahlin and Rasmus Ristolainen on the Sabres. He's playing against all the top defensive pairings in the NHL still, despite being a second borderline third lineman. And he's coming up with so many chances. So I think that the fact that their bottom 6 is clicking the way they are right now, and the top 6 clicks occasionally, if they could get that top 6 clicking, they could be even better than I think people expected them to be, which was 4, maybe even 5, depending on what happens. I think the Capitals are going to get that final spot, though. You may be wondering why I have the Rangers ahead of the Capitals, because the Rangers dominate the Capitals.
That is true. And since this is not a normal year,
when it comes to Madison Square Garden, and I think that even though the Islanders might be ahead of them now and the Capitals are also ahead, I don't think the Penguins are ready for the playoffs this year. It's hard to bet against Crosby and Malkin, but let's be realistic. The Rangers, yes, they've lost 3 games to them. They also should have won all 3 of those games, and it wasn't even the fact that defense did it to them. It was the Penguins. What's it called? It was, the Penguins. It wasn't the Penguins' offense that did that to them. It was the Penguins' defense that did that to them, and a lot of ref ball, as Utree would normally say. So, with that being said, Rangers 3, I say Caps 4, I say Islanders 5, Penguins in 6. I know I'm probably going to get a lot of criticism for everything past the top 2, but I don't care because it's just a prediction. It's only a month in. There's a lot of hockey left to be played. I say that the Devils are going to finish ahead of the Buffalo Sabres, and I think that the Sabres are going to be in 8. But don't get me wrong. Everything, I think, will be a lot closer because the last team in the standings, which is the Buffalo Sabres, still has 10 points. The only, really from the 3rd seed to the last seed, it's a 5-point difference. That could be climbed within 3 games. You know, if the Islanders go cold turkey, the Sabres get red hot, and the Sabres have played the least games next to the Devils. The Devils are the only team in the entire NHL, I think, that hasn't played more than 10 games. You know,
it's weird because
not even 10 games yet. Because the Sabres haven't played more than 10. The Sabres are going to get going again tonight. They're playing the Islanders, and that's a matchup that'll affect these standings. Because look, the Islanders lose in regulation. Sabres are going to be at 12 points. The Islanders are going to be at 15. They'll be playing again sometime this week. It's a lot closer than it looks. Trust me.
I mean, yeah, think about the points. They're only 2 games behind most of the seeds, the Rangers. So
yeah,
why not?
There are 3 teams. There are 3 teams right now that have 15 points. They're all tied for the 3rd spot in that division, point-wise. So
Yeah. I'll
that's
still
what I
say,
have to say.
yeah. Yeah, I'll still say that Caps are 3 and Rangers are 4, but it doesn't really matter what number they are because 3, 4, you're still in the playoffs. So
Exactly.
yeah, so I think they're gonna get in there, man. Let's go Rangers,
Yeah.
and I think that's it. We're done.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you
so
all for joining us today. We greatly appreciate it. If you tuned in for this entire episode, you're a real trooper. We really appreciate it. Comment in the comment section down below if you want to see more content like what we've done, or if you want to see any new content, if you have any suggestions for what we should be doing. And don't forget to subscribe and like. And please, just get the word out. We want to make this a big thing. We enjoy doing this for you. We enjoy bringing you guys content. For the final time today, I'm Josh.
I'm Joey.
And we'll see you next time on the JJ Sports Podcast. Have a great day.